The Sony A7V is supposed to be announced any day now, and I've been an avid professional user of the A7 IV since its release. So after 4 years with the A7 IV, I have some real thoughts on what the A7 V needs to be in order for me to upgrade. So today we're gonna nerd out a little bit. I love cameras, I love specs, I love guessing what's gonna happen, and so today we're just gonna nerd out a little bit and discuss what the A7 V probably needs to be in order for it to be an epic success for Sony. And then we're gonna discuss what it needs to be in order to upgrade from the A7 IV, and then we'll touch on what it needs to be in order to upgrade from the A7 III, because I know a ton of people are still shooting on that. Let's do this. Hey everyone, I'm Cole Caparoon. Thank you for stopping by for a video. Here on the Aperture Life, we cover pretty much everything content creation, filmmaking, photography, Lightroom techniques, camera reviews, lens reviews, etc. So if you're into that sort of thing, don't forget to subscribe. Now, the Sony A7 IV has a 33 megapixel backside illuminated sensor. That's where it gets a lot of its dynamic range. However, it is not stacked and it's not partially stacked. And this sensor has pretty slow readout speeds. We only get 10 frames a second in compressed RAW and 6 frames a second in uncompressed RAW. And the rolling shutter in video is kind of notoriously terrible. Now, there's a bunch of rumors about the A7 V having a new 44 megapixel sensor, and I don't really care about more megapixels. I want it to be faster. 33 megapixels is fine to me. Would I like more? Sure, of course, who wouldn't? But not at the detriment of readout speed. So I think the A7 V needs to have a partially stacked or fully stacked backside illuminated sensor, so that way we retain that dynamic range that this camera is pretty good at, while also drastically increasing its shots per second and decreasing its rolling shutter. I think the A7 V needs to have 20 frames per second in compressed RAW. And I think they gotta cut the rolling shutter by at least 50% in order for it to be a banger camera. Now, the A7 V is definitely gonna have better autofocus. It'll have whatever latest AI chip and the latest and greatest autofocus that Sony has to offer, which I'm sure will be incredible. However, the A7 IV has fantastic autofocus and it has almost never missed for me. So I don't really care how much better the autofocus is. Obviously, I want things to keep progressing and getting better. With autofocus, the A7 V is gonna be perfectly fine, whatever it comes with. But is better autofocus enough to make people like me upgrade? No, it's got to have a bunch more stuff, so let's keep going. So when it comes to photo, more megapixels would be great, better dynamic range would be great, but faster readout speed is the most necessary upgrade for the A7 IV. But let's talk a little bit about video, because my work is perfectly split 50-50. I'm a published printed photographer. I do tons of product photography, tons of landscape, automotive, tons of interior studio photography, but I do equally as much video work, and I have 4 YouTube channels, and I've created well over 400 videos with this camera. So I think video is equally as much important on the A7 V as photo is. Now, the A7 IV does 4K 60 with a 1.5 times crop, and that can't exist in the A7 V. Definitely has to be full frame 4K 60, probably needs to be full frame 4K 120. Because remember, when Sony drops these new cameras from a specs perspective, they usually stomp on everything else that's already out in the price bracket. So if they want that same thing to happen for the A7 V, it needs full frame 4K 120. And that goes back to the faster sensor. It's got to have faster readout speeds. All right, the next thing that needs to change is this screen, because it's not great. Let's just be honest. The screen on the A7 IV is a 3-inch, 1.03 million dot screen. It gets the job done, but it is nothing spectacular to look at or to use. Now, my FX3A that I'm filming on right now, that screen is a 2.63 million dot screen, exact same size, and it is a very noticeable difference. Like the resolution and how pleasant it is to look at, the brightness, everything about the screen on the FX3A is significantly better than the A7 IV. So as a minimum, the A7 V needs the same screen as the FX3A, and I think that's a minimum. If it has any less than that, then that's a deal breaker to me. So those are the things that I think it needs to have in order to not be a flop for Sony. But what's it gonna take to make me upgrade, to make me spend the money on the next one? What should it take for you to spend the money? I think the next one needs to have open gate. I think that is kind of a must for hybrid and cinema cameras moving forward. I think if it had open gate, that's real tempting for me personally. I think it needs more dynamic range. The dynamic range on this is pretty good, and when it came out, it was fantastic. Gerald Undone rated this at his medium score at 12.8 usable stops of dynamic range. So that's pretty good. But I think we need another half stop or more of dynamic range if it's really going to tempt people to sell their A7 IV or just to buy an A7V. Again, Sony is known for these being segment killers, not just a decent option. So if they really want to crush the market in that $3,000 price range, you need more dynamic range. Internal RAW would be nice, but I don't need it, and if it doesn't have it, that's not a deal breaker to me. Open gate would be very nice, but I don't know that it's a necessity to have in order for me to spend my money on it. But there is one thing that all Sony cameras do, and Sony, if anyone from Sony happens across this video, please, for the love of God, stop making the screen size, the image size on an external monitor, stop making it shrink significantly when you turn HDMI display info on. There's no reason for that. Put the HDMI display info over the top of the image on the external monitor and just let it be the same size. Because as soon as you want to see HDMI info on an external monitor, a 5-inch screen is like pretty usable. And as soon as you turn HDMI info on, now you gotta have a 6-inch display in order to actually have a usable size external monitor. This is infuriating to me, and there's no reason for it. Anything less than everything that I just described, and I will not be purchasing the A7V. If it has all of that, maybe minus open gate and minus raw recording, if it has all of that other stuff, then I'll buy the A7V. A7 IV has been an incredible tool for me. I've used it nearly every day since I bought it 4-something years ago. And sure, there's plenty of things about this that I would love to see get better. So if they can take all the strengths of the A7 IV and add all the things that I discussed for the A7V, that will be a winner. Anything less, I think, will be a flop, and I would not buy it if it's anything less than that. Now, if you're still on an A7 III, then I think the A7V is going to be a no-brainer upgrade. It doesn't even need to be that much better than the A7 IV for A7 III users for it to be worth the upgrade, especially if you do any video whatsoever, because the A7 III is still shooting 8-bit video. You move up into 10-bit video, you start getting to shoot with S-Log3 and do all the color grading stuff, and it's a big deal. So even without seeing the specs of the A7V, I would imagine if you're on an A7 III, it will be a worthwhile upgrade. If you're on an A7 IV, you gotta have all this stuff. I'll put links to all my camera gear, all my lights, everything that I use in the description down below, as well as a link to my 1-year review on the A7 IV. The links down there are affiliate links, but it costs you nothing extra. And when you use those links, it goes just a little ways to help me keep making videos like this. The support means the world to a small channel like this. And if you've made it this far and you haven't subscribed yet, I feel like I've earned your subscription and a thumbs up and a comment, and I really appreciate it. It really helps small channels like this out. So thank you very much for watching, for subscribing and commenting. All right, we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.